Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron. Every once in a while, it is my joy, my absolute privilege
Oh
to
boy.
be able to teach Joel something in a UI tool, because Joel is really one of those old school guys where he loves to use the command line for everything. And command line has its place, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the way I started programming, I just ended up using GUI tools a lot. And so I really love all the stuff that PHPStorm gives us, like its Git integration, stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Sure.
But there was one tool the other day that I remember showing you, and like, well, I know you knew it was there, but I just kept like almost like, just do this
Just try
already.
stop
And
command tabbing to your terminal. Just use
yeah,
this.
yeah, it was the local history in PHPStorm.
Yes, I remember this. Yeah. And just because you kind of joke, but I learned Git at the command line and I'm comfortable with it. But there are things I'll jump to a UI for, but this was not one of them, right? Like, so sometimes if I had like complicated branches and I wanted to look at how things laid out, I might open the source tree. I think that's the
Mhm.
one Atlassian makes.
Yeah.
But yeah, this local history feature to me, like, why would I use that? Why wouldn't I just use git log? And you made me do it.
Right, right. And it was interesting because we use branches and,
Hmm.
branch off on different things sometimes, but there's still intermediate steps between the different commits that you might do and things that you've done just throughout the day.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why local history comes in useful, because your Git history is I did this and I committed that and now
Right.
I'm at this stage, and there's nothing in between. That could be a couple
Hmm.
of hours in between there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. So the local history, it shows more than the git log does, like more history. If I recall right, the other thing that really excited me about it, you know how excitable I am,
Hmm.
was I'm like, what are these symbols? And it would also show every time you had run a test, whether it passed or failed. So like in this case, I think I was using kind of the more traditional TDD flow, or it was a bug. I can't remember exactly, but there's a lot of test runs, fail, pass. And we were trying to revert something after arguing about code formatting or something like that. And so like seeing that, like certainly git log doesn't capture every time you ran PHP unit and what the result was. So that was another, I thought, really useful feature in the local history, even if I didn't care about going back in time, just seeing like what tests ran and what passed or failed.
That was so weird too, because when it comes to unit tests, I run my unit tests on the command line and
Well,
you
that's
use the
right.
GUI for yours.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So if you're running PHP unit at the command line, then the PHPStorm local history would not show it. But I was using the UI test runner. Well, I like using the shortcut key. So if you're inside a test, it's like Control R or something will run the test that your cursor is within. So I like that.
Yeah, I think the point here though is even if you're not using that, it's just
Mhm.
kind of nice to have. There's basically a snapshot, if you want to look at it that way, of every time that you save or PHPStorm automatically saves a file,
Yeah.
and you can kind of look at that. And like in a perfect world, if you're really a complete Git master,
Mhm.
maybe every single time that you had an idea, you make another branch and do your stuff in there, commit it, switch
Yeah.
between branches. I think in a perfect world, if we were using the tool to its most extent, you might have 20, 30 different, branches throughout the life of this one branch of the different things you've tried to figure out. But
Mhm.
we don't do
No.
that.
No.
You stick on one, maybe two, if it's going to be a really long, experiment. So
Mhm.
it's nice to have these little snapshots along the way too, that you can look like 15 minutes ago, I was doing something, I changed something, there was a phone call, then I thought I remembered it, but I forgot and I moved on. And you're like, wait a second,
All
what was that
right.
an hour ago? And
Yeah.
you can look back at that.
Yeah. Well, that never happens, but no. So I have another PHPStorm feature, and you tell me, I don't remember if you showed this one to me or I discovered it in my own greatness, but it has to do with doing pull request reviews, which like we both primarily do in the GitHub
Hmm.
website, right? Like you just go there and do it because it's pretty good. Like you get syntax highlighting, you get a little bit of context. There are nice things in it, but if you use, first of all, PHPStorm has a GitHub integration where you can open a pull request and you
Mhm.
can see everything. Like you can see comments, you can reply to comments, you can add comments. But the additional thing it gives you is it has all of the like really advanced syntax highlighting and error detection and like click through navigation and all the things that your editor has. That I maybe someday they'll have in my GitHub, but they don't right now. And so one example that pops into my mind is an unused namespace import. Like you can look at that in the code in GitHub and maybe notice it, but maybe the diff was deleting something and now it's not even going to show up in the diff that
Right.
this namespace import still exists. So you end up with like this like cruft in your code that doesn't need to be there. But in PHPStorm, you see that and it throws like a weak warning on it. It's like, hey, we can just click a button and get rid of it. So there's a million things like that. I still don't do it all the time, but if it's a bigger, meatier pull request, I do like to pull it into PHPStorm.
Yeah, I think part of the whole discipline of being a programmer is not getting lost in your tools,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
understanding them. And so when we talk about these things, maybe these are things you've been doing the entire time. And you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, of course, guys, let's get with it. Or maybe it's things you never even knew it could do.
Yeah.
The point is we try to use the tool is such a integral part now of the programming experience
Mm-hmm.
that we try to learn little bits about the tool in the same way that we're always learning little bits about the language
Yeah.
and the libraries and the frameworks as well.
Right. Yeah. What I want to dig into a little more is the Docker integration. Like we use it, like for example, running unit tests, it'll launch our container, but I know it'll manage like your whole Docker compose and you can start and stop
Mhm.
services. And so that's on my to-do list. But like you mentioned, little bits here and there, don't just like blow a whole week fiddling with your different tools.
So every once in a while, there's something that happens that's so embarrassing, but it shouldn't be embarrassing. But then it's also weird and embarrassing
I'm intrigued.
that yeah, that you're just like, I don't understand what just happened to all this.
Okay.
So I went to the grocery store the other day and I was buying some stuff and I went through self checkout and I have, I'm putting in, I bought 2 jars of pickles, so I put the first one in the bag and I put the second one in the bag and the bag rips and the pickle jar falls out and just smashes and there's pickle juice all over and glass. And, then first of all, you're just like, okay, I'm that person that made the glass shatter. So
Yeah.
everyone also, everyone's looking at you, but also not looking at you.
That's my
Like
worst fear,
they're,
by the way.
yeah, it's just, and so then you're standing there like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
don't go to the grocery store carrying around a mop.
No.
So, and I don't want to like leave it because that looks like I'm a jerk or whatever. So I'm just like
And
kind
you
of
paid
standing
for it,
there.
right? If you put it
Yeah.
in the bag, you've paid for it.
Well, I haven't yet, but
Oh, okay.
and so I'm just standing there, and then a girl comes over and she's like, "Oh, hey, I'll get the cleaned up, and you can just continue." I'm like, but like so I'm standing by the checkout, and she's like, "Oh, you can go get another one." She's like, "Oh, I can take this off your bill." I'm like, "Oh no, it's fine," because I should have said yes, but now I'm starting to panic because there's this worker that's like kneeling down cleaning up
Yeah.
stuff and I'm still just standing there like a deer
Yeah.
in the headlights.
Were
Like,
you eating
oh,
a pickle?
no, but it's not, I had some more stuff to do, but it's not like I can do it because it's all in
Right.
front of
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And she's like looking like, oh, well, you can just continue what you're doing. I'm like, I'm not going to check out over the top of you,
All right. Drop another jar
and
of pickles on her.
yeah. And so she's like cleaning this up and stuff. And she's like, oh, well, you can go get another one. And in that point, I was just like, I just want to get out of here.
Yeah.
Like I am now to the point where I don't even care if I leave with everything,
Mm-hmm.
like or nothing. I
Yeah.
just want to get out of here. But when she said that, somehow I responded in a way that I've never responded before, and I hope I don't again. I looked at her and then I did that thing where you're trying to be like quiet but funny. So you put
Okay.
your hand to your mouth and you kind of talk out the
Right.
side of it. And I go, I don't need another one. I had 2 anyway. And I was like, what kind of old person did I just become? Like,
Wow.
that's not funny. You don't have to whisper that.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. And I'm
All
just
right.
like, oh, just get me out of here.
See, I thought the embarrassing part was dropping the pickles, but you're right. You made it way worse.
Way worse. There's so many things to learn. And how do you know which ones to focus on? And how do you find the time?
Well, we are full of things to share like that. Head over to masteringlaravel.io and sign up for a free newsletter, and we'll send you a short tip each day.